Hello everyone. In this lesson, we will give basic subscriber role users permission to create and manage their own notes. And most importantly, we will learn how to do this in a way that does not hurt the security or performance of our website. So without further ado, let's dive right into the action. Okay, so here we are on the My Notes page, and throughout the last several lessons, we've set up the ability to create, update, and delete note posts. However, we've been logged in with our admin accounts for the last several lessons. And remember that our ultimate goal for the My Notes feature is that we want random subscriber accounts to be able to take notes. And we have yet to set up custom permissions for the note post type. And the default permissions say that only admins, editors, and authors can create posts. So right now, follow along with me. In this window, I'm currently logged in with my admin account, but over in this window, this private window, I'm going to log in with my subscriber account. So we can use the top right login button and go ahead and log in with the test account that you created back in the open registration chapter. In my case, I named my test subscriber account Kitty Doe. Okay, so go ahead and log in. And now with this subscriber account, let's try to visit the My Notes page. And just a quick tip, before you actually fill out the form and try to create a note, I recommend not using the preview proxy server in your second browser. This has nothing to do with WordPress. It's just an issue related to our live reload workflow feature. Basically, in any secondary windows where I want to log in as a different account, I recommend just visiting the actual dev domain that you've set up, whether that's fictionaluniversity.dev or the URL that MAMP, XAMPP, or WAMP gives you. I'd use that instead of the localhost 3000 that our live reload feature gives us. Because in the past, I've seen issues where if you send off an AJAX request in one browser, where you are logged in as user A, it can potentially send out that request for all open browsers connected to localhost 3000, where you might be logged in as user B or user C. So long story short, I would only visit localhost 3000 for one user session. If you need to log in with other accounts in other browser windows, just be sure to visit the actual URL of your site. Okay, now with that out of the way, let's try to create a note with our subscriber account. So testing 1, 2, 3, hello, click create, and I'm noticing that it's not being added down here. So if I check the console, we see a forbidden error as well as sorry, and the official response from WordPress says, sorry, you are not allowed to create posts as this user. So to fix this, let's go give the subscriber role permission to create note posts. To do this, jump into your text editor, and instead of your theme folder, I want you to look in your MU or must use plugins folder. And if we jump within this file where we register our custom post types, let's scroll down to the note post type, and we want to add a few new properties to this associative array. Doesn't matter where, you could do it up at the top or down at the bottom, but let's just add a new line and say capability type equals, and then make up a unique name. So I'm just going to say note. It doesn't need to match the custom post name. It just needs to be something unique, because remember, by default, custom post types inherit their permissions from the blog post type. So by saying capability type equals something new and unique, we are setting up brand new permissions that only apply to this post type. Okay, and then right below this, let's also include map meta cap, which stands for capability, and let's set that to equal true. This line of code will actually enforce and require the permissions at the right time and at the right place. Okay, let's go ahead and save this, and then back in the window where we are logged in as the admin account, let's jump over to the dashboard and let's hover over users in the sidebar and then click on roles. Okay, and we need to do two things. Number one, obviously, is that we want to give the subscriber role permissions to work with the note post type. But we also want to be sure to give our administrator role full and complete access to those new permissions. Let's take care of our administrator role first. So click on Administrator, and thanks to that new code that we wrote just a moment ago, we now see a Notes tab. So click on Notes, and I'm just going to grant the administrator role full capabilities. So I'm going to select every single box here, and then click Update. And you might need to manually refresh, but now you can see that the admin, once again, has access to the Notes post type. Okay, now let's go take care of the real task at hand, which is giving the subscriber role the necessary permissions. So under the user's sidebar menu, click on Roles again, and I'm going to edit the subscriber role. And we want to be very selective over what we give this role, because we absolutely do not and cannot trust subscriber users. They could very well be malicious users. So the only capabilities that I'm going to grant live within the Notes tab, and we only need to grant a few of these. We definitely do not want to grant all of them. So first, let's grant the Publish Notes ability, right? We want them to be able to create a new note. Okay, and then we want them to be able to edit or make changes to those notes. So I will grant Edit Notes. And this Edit Notes ability will let them make edits to a draft, but if we want them to be able to edit finalized published notes, we want to be sure to grant Edit Published Notes down here. Okay, and finally, we also want them to be able to delete their own notes. So I will grant Delete Notes, but make sure that you absolutely do not grant Delete Others Notes, right? We only want them to be able to edit or delete notes that they are the author of. And again, this Delete Notes ability will let them delete rough drafts, but if we want them to be able to delete their finalized published notes, we want to be sure to grant Delete Published Notes. Okay, so make sure that you only grant those 5 capabilities, and then let's click Update. Okay, and now with those capabilities in place, let's jump back to the other window where we are signed in with our subscriber account, and let's try to create a note. So cat note number 1, lorem ipsum test, click Create. Perfect, the note was successfully created. And we can try to make an update or edit to the note. Modified cat note. Down here, say updated lorem ipsum. Click Save. Cool. The fact that we got kicked out of edit mode tells us that the request was successful. And finally, let's test out the delete ability. Perfect. Now let's change gears and talk about privacy, because we want these notes to be private, meaning only the author or creator of a post should be able to view it. Now, in order to test out our privacy, why don't we create another new note with our subscriber account? So, new cat note, lorem ipsum testing 1, 2, 3, click Create. Okay, and in a perfect world, only this user account would be able to view this new note. However, the REST API is creating a huge gap in our privacy. Let me show you what I mean. So as of right now, you don't even need to be logged into our website at all. Just any random stranger can visit this REST API URL. So WP-JSON WP v2 note. And if anyone visits that URL, WordPress is going to send them back the raw JSON for all note posts. So someone that doesn't even have an account on our website could visit this URL and see that there is a note named New Cat Note, and that there's a note named Hello World 5000, and another sample post. You get the idea. And they could even see the content for each note, right? So for this note, the content was hi, hey, hello. So obviously this is a huge gap in our privacy, and the question becomes, how do we fix this? Well, luckily we can leverage a WordPress native feature of private content. Let me show you what I mean. So first, just as a test, let's take note of the first item that we see in the resulting JSON, right? It's the note post that has a title of new cat note. Okay, and let me show you how we can take advantage of private content. So back in the window where you are logged in with your admin account, I want you to click on Notes in the sidebar. And let's find that most recent note that was created by our subscriber role. Go ahead and click on it. And over in the right-hand column, under Visibility, let's click Edit and choose Private. Okay, let's go ahead and update. Okay, and now that this post is private, if we go back to Postman and send out another request to this URL, notice that the new cat post is no longer visible, right? Now the newest post that we see in this JSON is Hello World 5000. Now just as a test, why don't we go back into the admin dashboard and click on Notes, and let's just set all of these note posts to be private as well. So you can just check the checkbox next to all of them. And then under bulk actions, we can choose edit and then click apply. And then within this bulk edit user interface, under status, let's just choose private. And then click update. Okay, so now all of our note posts are private. And now if someone tries to visit the REST API URL, they will literally see nothing. And that's perfect. That's exactly what we want. So now we have proper privacy, but obviously we can't manually go into the dashboard and edit every post by hand to be private. Instead, we need an automatic way or a programmatic way of setting all note posts to be private. And the first step towards setting that up has to do with our JavaScript. So back in the window where we are a subscriber account, when we fill out and submit this form, that's going to send off a request to the REST API. So our first step is to modify that request that gets sent off. So right now, let's jump into our text editor. And instead of our MU plugins folder, I want you to jump into our theme folder. And within the JS and then the modules folder, let's jump into MyNotes.js, and let's scroll down until we find our method that is named createNote. Here it is, and I want to focus on this OurNewPost object. So this is where we are setting up the data that we want to send to the server. We are specifying the title, the body content, and the status. So if we want this new post to be private, we can just change status publish to status private. So if I go ahead and save that, and then make sure that your JavaScript is getting bundled, but then if we jump back to the front end and refresh, and if I try to create a brand new note, cat note number 2, lorem ipsum 2, and click create note, cool, we see that that note was created, but most importantly, if we jump back to the window where we are logged in with our admin account and refresh the notes screen, here we see that brand new post that we just created, and perfect. We can see that it was successfully set to private. Now, if we lived in a perfect world where we could trust everyone on the planet, our work here would be done. But that's not reality. Let me explain what I mean. So back in our JavaScript, we cannot trust this value of status because it's very easy for a malicious user to modify their client-side JavaScript and change this to say status publish. Now, even though 99% of visitors will not do this, we need to protect ourselves from the 1% of malicious users that would do this. So just as a privacy and security test, I'm going to set this back to status publish. Go ahead and save, because we cannot rely on a client-side feature to force a certain status. We need to set up something on the server side that enforces that the post must be private. So right now, let me show you how we could set that up. Within our theme folder, I want you to jump into our functions.php file. Let's go ahead and scroll down to the very bottom, and let's add a new line or a new comment and say, force note posts to be private. Okay, and then let's use the WordPress method named addFilter. And what we want to do is right before a post gets saved into the database or updated in the database, we want to intercept that action, and we want to filter or modify the data that's going to be put into the database. So within the parentheses for addFilter, the name of the WordPress filter hook that we want to use is WP insert post data. And this is one of the most powerful and flexible filter hooks in all of WordPress. Okay, then for the second argument, we just get to make up a function name. Why don't we call it make note private? But you could name this whatever you want. And then on a new line, let's create a function with this exact matching name. So function make note private, parentheses, curly brackets. Okay, and I want you to think of this function of ours as literally a filter. So in real life, if you had dirty water, you would run the water through a filter, right? And then it would return clean water. So this filter hook is going to pass our function data. So within the parentheses for our function definition, let's add a parameter named data. This is the water that's entering our filter. And then within the body of our function, we just say return data. And this is the water exiting our filter. And the water or data in this context is all of the data about the post that's about to be saved into the database. Now this function in its current state is completely useless because we are not modifying the water in any way. The idea is that before you return the data, you are free to manipulate it however you want. So we could look within the data, and it's an array. Remember, to look inside an array, you use square brackets. And then we could modify whatever we want, whether it's the title or the body content, or in our case, the post status. Okay, and we could set this to equal private. However, before we save this, we need to remember that this is going to run for every single post, not just note posts. And we don't want to force blog posts or professors or campuses to be private. So right above this line, why don't we write an if statement, if parentheses, curly brackets. For the condition check, let's say only if the post that's about to be saved is a note post. So if data, let's look within it with square brackets, if its post type equals note, okay, so only if that evaluates to true, and then we can just move this line to live within the if statement. However, in order to delete a post, you need to set the post status to trash, which means there is one exception when we don't want to override the post status to private. We do want to let users set the post status to trash, just not publish or future or some other value. So within our if statement, let's just add a secondary condition check. So we've got our first condition, and if our data post status does not equal trash. So if it's a note post and if the post status is set to anything other than trash, then let's force the status to be private. Okay, let's go ahead and save this. And even though our JavaScript has set the status to publish, we don't care because we have a server-side policy enforcing the privacy. So let's go test it out. So back in the window where I'm logged in as a subscriber, new privacy test, lorem ipsum, click create. Okay, there's the new post, but more importantly, if we go into the window where we are the admin and refresh the notes list, cool, there's the brand new privacy test, and we can see that it is indeed private. And that's going to bring this video to a close. In part 2 of this lesson, we will continue to learn more about security. Let's keep things rolling, and I will see you then.